What's up, everyone, and happy Friday, and that means it's time for Ask Shane Anything. This show happens because some of you guys are pledging at $7 or more per month at patreon.com/SIFTD. This is really a reward for people doing that. Now, everybody gets to watch the show that's pledging at least $4 or more per month, and everybody gets to ask questions, but I do give precedent to those who are pledging at that higher tier. Again, I think everybody can understand that. But obviously, I appreciate all our patrons. If you're watching this show on YouTube, and that's a new thing for this show to be on YouTube, it would really be awesome if you could find it in your heart to support us at patreon.com/SIFTD. Again, for just $4 a month, you get all our content at least 4 days early. You get Pactor Factor a week early, Game Face 4 days early, this show even more than that. So if you can find it in your heart to help us, that would be awesome. Regardless, we have a great set of questions for today's show. Let's get right to them. Our first question this week comes from SIFTD stalwart, Erebus Jones. With Sony seemingly about to take full control of Bungie shortly, do you think the Bungie games will be multi-platform promise when it was acquired will still hold? Will we see Marathon or Destiny 3 on Xbox now? Erebus, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember that. I honestly don't remember the Bungie's games will be multi-platform pledge. I'm not saying you're wrong, I just, for whatever reason, I don't remember that, but I'll just operate on the premise that what you're saying is true. Now, to be fair, all Bungie's games have been multi-platform so far, because obviously Destiny 2 is on Xbox, and they have continued releasing DLC for Destiny 2. So I guess already they've kind of held up to the bargain in that way, but your question really is like, what's going to happen going forward? And I guess the first thing I would say is first party, a brand new PlayStation first party game on another platform seems far-fetched to me. Particularly Marathon, because Marathon hasn't appeared on Xbox already. Destiny, obviously, is a different story. But Marathon, it's not a new IP. If you know Bungie, you know that Marathon's been a thing for a really long time, honestly. But it still, for most people, will be like a new game. And I really struggle to see where PlayStation would launch one of its first-party games for Xbox. Obviously, the dam is already broken on PC. And I think PlayStation at this point would be idiotic to not release pretty much every shooter that it publishes on PC day and date. I'm not saying like with a delay, like it's been doing with some games. I mean like day and date. Like it should be there on that day, like Helldivers 2 and like Concord. And I do think that's going to happen. So maybe part of the Marathon question is, what is the game going to be? Is it going to be a competitive shooter game as a service, which it does kind of seem like that's how it's been positioned? Or is it going to be primarily a single-player campaign with maybe multiplayer tacked on, a la like Call of Duty? And that stuff really matters. Like that, to me, is what's going to determine what happens with that game. If it is a multiplayer-focused shooter at the end of it all, then yeah, I think Marathon will launch for PC. But Xbox? Probably not, man. I still don't see it. I don't think that PlayStation is going to release any of its first-party exclusives on Xbox until Xbox is out of the hardware market. And that could be a decade from now. So I think if you're an Xbox fan hoping that maybe some of Sony's first-party stuff will start coming to your platform, I don't think that's a good thing to be counting on. Now let's talk about Destiny 3, because messages coming out of Bungie. In fact, Bungie just issued a statement today talking about all the controversy and all the things that have been said since some of this information has come out about how PlayStation is sort of assimilating it into the Borg a little more. Destiny is, it sounds like it's in trouble. It also sounds like Bungie was in trouble. Bungie was losing money, according to Bungie, when it was acquired by PlayStation, and some leaks have come out saying that Bungie wasn't 100% honest with PlayStation through that whole process. Again, this is all hearsay. Who knows what's true and what's not true, but I'm just going to take what Bungie says, because they issued a statement today, and basically what Bungie said is like, Destiny's in deep crap. Matt had mentioned during Game Face this past week that he had read that Destiny 3 had never been worked on, and it hadn't even been started yet. That could be true. I do think that there's probably at least some pre-production that's been done on that game, but as of right now, I think Destiny 3 is on the back burner. I don't even think it's like a thing right now at Bungie or PlayStation, because Destiny 2 isn't doing very well right now. Obviously, it's released a bunch of big expansions. None of them have really moved the needle and got people back into it. I used to be a big Destiny player. And I tried to play the first couple expansions, but it felt like I was so disconnected from the game. And keep in mind, I had played Destiny 2 for, I don't know, like 60 hours or something like that when it came out, between the campaign, which was pretty long, and then all the other stuff that came afterwards. So I should be the candidate that could get suckered to go back into the Destiny ethos at some point. It never worked for me. And so my guess is it probably hasn't worked for a lot of other people. So it really feels like the Destiny franchise in general is kind of on the ropes. Again, PlayStation has already announced that, like, how they've been doing things with Destiny 2, it's going to change. So my guess is they'll make a bunch of changes to Destiny 2. They'll see how they do and see if they actually work, or if they resonate, or if it keeps the numbers from going down. And maybe if they can at least create a plateau for the players for Destiny 2, then maybe you start seeing Bungie and PlayStation start seriously thinking about Destiny 3. But as of right now, like, I wouldn't even count on Destiny 3 being a thing. So I guess to answer your questions overall, I think what we're seeing right now, for the most part, is going to remain status quo. I think you're going to see the games as a service stuff launch for both PS5, maybe PS4, and PC day and date. And as of right now, I don't think there's any chance of first-party stuff appearing on Xbox again until Microsoft exits the hardware market. And Microsoft has already said it's working on its next console. It's going to be bigger and better than anything they've ever made, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is Microsoft and Xbox have said there's going to be another Xbox. So from now, that's 10 years. Because Series X is probably going to last another 3 years. And then that next console will probably last another 7. That gets us out to a decade. So, unfortunately, if you're an Xbox fan or you only own an Xbox Series X and you're counting on playing some of those first-party PlayStation games, I would not hold my breath. Okay, next up, we have a question from Geno Mike 1. Hi, Shane. How are you doing, my friend? Geno Mike, thank you for asking. You were the person who asked me a few episodes ago what question nobody ever asked me, and it was like, how are you doing? And you just asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing pretty good, man. Like, again, as I said on Game Face, I feel fortunate to be able to still be doing this, particularly after all the closures and the Game Informer stuff. And also, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but this is insane. IGN's parent company, Ziff Davis, just bought CNET. So everything just kind of came full circle for me. My first job in the industry was working at GameSpot, my first real job. And that was, at the time, was owned by ZDNet, Ziff Davis Net. And not too long after I started there, it was purchased. GameSpot was purchased by CNET. And then I worked there under CNET for a while before I left. And now everything's coming full circle. And Ziff Davis owns the old parent company of GameSpot. Now, GameSpot, I don't believe, is a part of that anymore. So it's not like IGN now owns GameSpot, but still everything's come full circle. Anyway, back to your question, how I'm doing. I'm very thankful. Even though I'm not making hardly any money or whatever, I am mostly happy, and I'm very lucky to be able to do this. I'm lucky to have an awesome wife who loves me. I have a lot of things to be thankful for. So I guess that's the way I put it. Now for the rest of your question. Been watching some Olympics, and it made me wonder if you have any interest in the Olympics. What's your Olympic sport of choice? Any sport you think should not be in the Olympics? Any that you think should be included? Breakdancing has been added this year, and after some YouTubing, I am surprisingly interested in it. Old clips of B-Boy Jr. are impressive. Okay, so I'm going to narrow this response down to just the Summer Olympics instead of the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics, because obviously it's the Summer Olympics that are happening right now. I love the Olympics. I really do. I don't have a lot of time to watch them. I wish I had more time to watch. I get done with work usually around 8:30 Pacific, and that gives me like a 2 or 3 hour window to really do stuff before I need to go to bed or whatever. So I haven't been able to watch as much as I have wanted to, but I just gotta say, watching these Olympics, it really makes me feel proud to be an American. Because, and I realize people watching this, you people are all around the world, and I'm sure you feel the same way when one of your athletes win, but it fills me with a sense of pride. And I'll be honest with you, it's been really hard to find that as an American. I feel like over the last like 8 years, so much crazy stuff has been happening in this country. I mean, obviously there's been Olympics during that time, but the last Olympics, the Summer Olympics, were during COVID, and that was all kind of weird. This is like the first full-throated Olympics since COVID, and it just fills me with a sense of pride, man. Like, Simone Biles, she's like a superhuman. Like, she is the closest thing to a superhero that I have ever seen in real life. Have you watched some of the freeze frames of where she's doing her tumbling passes and she is at her ultimate height, where she's like at almost 12 feet off the ground? She's like 4'8". It's insane. She is a goddess. She makes me proud to be an American. It's incredible what she's done. And I could just go on. The track and field teams, what really has impressed me about not just America, but America in a couple cases, but in track and field in general, has been the people who come back, who are like rounding the last turn, and they're in like 8th or 9th place, and they just blow past everybody. Now, I will admit, there's been some things I've seen in these Olympics where I was like, is there some like doping going on here or some HGH? And I'm not accusing athletes in other countries. I've seen some Americans do some stuff where I was like, wait a minute. Like, it's really blown my mind, some of the stuff that I've seen in these Olympics. So, yes, what my favorite Olympic sport is. It's the new one. It's skateboarding. I waited so long for skateboarding to be in the Olympics, and finally they did it in the last one. This is now its second Olympics. I do wish that they had it on more on prime time, or it wasn't one of the first events when the Olympics kicked off. So I wish that they would reschedule that. But now that skateboarding is in the Olympics, obviously, the sport that I really enjoyed when I was younger is the sport that I enjoy watching the most. I was a little disappointed that Nigel Houston didn't come through. He really choked in the last Olympics, and this time he got a bronze, but in my opinion, he's the best skateboarder in the world by like a wide margin. Like, if you just watch him skate, it's insane how confident and how good he is. But for whatever reason at the Olympics, he never turned in a good performance. So skateboarding would be my favorite one in the Summer Olympics, but I like them all. Like, any events that I would want eliminated, no. Like, I kind of enjoy being able to watch all of them for that little window every 4 years. Now, if they were on every week, would I keep watching them? No. But that's why the Olympics are awesome. It exposes you to all these new sports that maybe you didn't even know existed. Now, I will say this. I have been critical of, and a hypocrite, honestly, in some cases, about some Olympic events. Like, I hate the gymnastics floor routine. I love the tumbling and the passes that they do, but I hate the goofy, like, dancing stuff that they do with their arms while they're trying to, like, situate themselves to the corner of the mat so they can do their pass. I always made fun of that, and I still think it looks ridiculous. But I also realize, I'm like, I can't really like breakdancing in the Olympics and then criticize stuff like that. So in the past, like, artistic dance and stuff like that, I always kind of made fun of and wondered why it was in the Olympics. But I love breakdancing, and I think it absolutely belongs in the Olympics. So I have changed my opinion on that. I have grown to not like those things, but appreciate them and understand that other people like that stuff the way that I like breakdancing. So no, I would not eliminate any sports from the Olympics. I would maybe add more. I know baseball and softball were removed, like maybe last Olympics, and it's a little weird that they're not in there, so maybe they should come back. What about putting American football in the Olympics? It's the world's second most popular sport behind football, soccer. Why is it in the Olympics? So that's something that would be cool if they added it. Now on to breaking, is what they're calling it, breaking in the Olympics instead of breakdancing. I was a breaker from in mid-'80s. I had a crew called the Demolition Crew. I was called Demolition. I was like the leader of the crew, and we were like kind of like state champs. Like, I hate to say it, but back in the 80s, like, we would meet at these underage dance clubs, and we would meet other crews from other counties or whatever. And like, we started going there first, and we would just go there and break on Friday nights. And I guess the word started spreading around the area that there was these kids breaking at this underage dance club. And next thing we knew, all the crews from around the state started showing up. And at first they would just show up and hang out and say, hey, good to meet other breakers. But eventually we started battling. We had breakdance competitions there. I won a boombox in a breakdance competition there. Anyway, I love breaking. I love hip-hop culture. I love all of it. I'm a DJ. I used to write graffiti. I am all about it. So breaking is insane. Like, if you get your mind blown by, like, the floor routines that you see with gymnastics, watch the breaking events. It is... When I was breaking, like, I remember, like, if you could do 15 backspins, you were, like, amazing. Now they'll do, like, 100. And I also remember, too, when I was into it, there was this magazine that I bought at the local newsstand called Breakdancing and the New York City Breakers. And this was in, like, 1983 or 84. And it was almost like a comic book, like, graphic novel thing. But in there, a lot of the hip-hop people who started the culture and a lot of the early breakers were talking about the Olympics and how they wanted breakdancing to be a part of the Olympics. And they had this list of, like, requirements that you should have to satisfy in order to be able to make the Olympic team. And it was like, do, like, 40 no-hand necks. Those are called windmills now. But back then they were called no-hand necks. And they wanted you to be able to do 30 backspins. And, like, me and my friends were like, dude, we were like, there's no way we'd be able to be that good to do that. And as it turns out, it never made it into the Olympics until like 40 years later. But here it is. I think it's awesome. I think you guys should all watch it. Now, B-Boy Jr., people who are into breaking know B-Boy Jr. And the thing about him is, you're right, he is amazing. People have, obviously are in awe of him because he's disabled and he's been able to do all that stuff. But people are also like, well, it's a little easier for him to do some stuff. But he is incredible. But B-Boy Jr. is so like a decade ago, man. Like the kids now, it is incredible what they're doing. Like, I think maybe the biggest thing about it is how they transition from one thing to another. Like 10 years ago, people could do head spins, like 1,000 of them or whatever. But now they're doing like head spins into head glides, into windmills, into the backspin, and then popping back up. And they're doing it all in like one move. And that is really where it's changed. So I can't wait to watch breakdancing in the Olympics, and I think you guys should all check it out as well. Okay, and our final question for this week's episode, and I realize it's only 3 this week, but I have a bunch of stuff I need to get done this afternoon, and I can't spend too much time on the show today, and that question comes from Kevin. With the Xbox 360 store closing, what are some of your fondest memories with the console? I feel like Matt and I talked about Xbox 360 on Game Face, but you know, anytime you're on a podcast with somebody else, like, you'll think of things, and then Matt will keep talking, and then, like, what I was thinking about won't flow with the conversation anymore, so I won't say it. Like, stuff like that happens in podcasts. You have to respect the other person, and sometimes they'll take the conversation some other different direction, and you won't be able to basically share all the things that you wanted to share about it. So here's my chance to share really my thoughts on Xbox 360 unfettered. The first thing I would say is it was the greatest period of my professional life. The Xbox 360, that whole era. Right around when it was launching, I was at XPlay for the Xbox 360 launch, because one of my best memories of Xbox 360 was the launch event that we did at G4 out in the desert in this gigantic hangar. It was basically like an all-night rave. It literally went all night. And we were there to broadcast it live, and it was a huge production for us. We worked on it for months and months leading up to it. We were there when they gave away the first ever Xbox 360 in America and all this stuff. And it was an incredible event, and our production went great. And I have so many awesome memories of working with all my old friends at G4 during that production, and it was incredible. And then the console launched, and it was awesome. The launch was a little weak as far as the software that was there, but there was enough good games for launch. And then it just became incredible. It, to me, showed me what I was going to be doing for the next, like, 20 years. The Xbox 360 was the first modern console. It was the first console to do 3D graphics well. Obviously, with the PlayStation 3, developers really struggled with it. Developers got right up to speed on Xbox 360 and were making excellent-looking 3D games. It really showed for the first time, like, hey, look, that's bump mapping. And, like, all these modern graphical tricks were shown for the first time. They're obviously far better implemented now than they were back then. But we got to see what the future of games were going to look like and play like. That's also where 3D games really evolved into really what hasn't changed since. Let's be honest, most video games still play exactly the same as they did in the Xbox 360 era. And then, maybe most importantly, it was Xbox Live. Obviously, Xbox One had Xbox Live, but it was only for a few games. Xbox 360 integrated that online environment into everything. Being able to chat, even if you weren't even playing a game, being able to chat. Like, one thing that I really miss that the Xbox 360 did was it would hook into your local network, and it would, like, stream music from your PC. And then you could create your own soundtracks from your own music to play while you played games or did anything else on the console. I have no idea why that's gone away. It's a Windows machine. Windows does that organically. Just last night I was thinking about this. I'm like, I'd really like to listen to my music while I'm playing Rocket League instead of some other music that they're giving me. I don't know why that went away. But anyway, it started everything. If you talk about anything that's happening now in gaming, you can almost always trace it back to the Xbox 360. Even just its dashboard with the blades. Like, I still miss that. Like, all these other interfaces they're giving us are so just jumbled and confusing. The blades work. They always worked. So the Xbox 360 solved so many questions. Some that we had and some we didn't even know that we had. Playing shooters on Xbox Live just changed everything. Now, granted, I was always a PC player. I played Star Siege Tribes for literally like hundreds of hours. So it wasn't like online shooters were a new thing for me, but it was a new thing for everybody else. I was finally able to play with my friends online instead of just random people who I didn't know. Like, they all got Xbox 360s, and suddenly I'm playing like Ghost Recon with one of my best bros in Philly. Like, that was all a huge paradigm shift. Now, talking about the games, there's so many franchises that were birthed in that Xbox 360 era that are still going today, and I still have an affinity for them. Halo 3 obviously was a gigantic game, maybe the biggest shooter launch ever. There's just so many great memories around Xbox 360. It really is a shame what has happened to Microsoft since then, because let's be honest, it really hasn't hit that peak since. So I have so many fond memories of Xbox 360. In a lot of ways, it may be my favorite console of all time. It definitely has, personally, I have probably the biggest library I own is for Xbox 360. Now, I did just this week go and pull out all the sports games from my Xbox 360 collection, and I have like 40 sports games, and like none of them are worth anything. And I'm like, should I throw them away? I don't know what to do with them. But anyway, I love the Xbox 360. I loved it. I still love it. And I believe it was one of the greatest consoles of all time. Okay, that's it for this edition of Ask Shane Anything. NFL preseason is here this weekend. Your favorite team is probably playing. Steelers are playing today, actually. I don't know if I'll get to watch it, though, because I got a bunch of stuff to do. But anyway, NFL season's almost here. Hopefully you're excited for it, as I am. It seemed like the offseason went by in the blink of an eye. The NFL's very good at making sure there's something happening pretty consistently, so you never completely disengage from their league. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend, filled with great games. We'll see you for Game Face on Tuesday. And again, if you're watching this show on YouTube, please think about supporting us. We could really use the help. Go to patreon.com/SIFTD. You just pledge $4 and you get all our content way early. If you really like this show and you want to make sure this show keeps going, make sure you pledge at that $7 or more per month tier. So thanks again. We'll see you guys for Game Face on Tuesday.